Ever think about how a single paintbrush could, land an artist right in the middle of a revolution? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into. We're talking about Élisabeth Vigée Le Brun, an incredible artist whose loyalty to a queen put her in an absolutely impossible spot during one of the most violent moments in history. Okay, so picture this. Paris, October 5th, 1789. It's a terrifying night. The air is just thick with tension, and it's not just the autumn chill, right? It's the sound of a revolution that's about to boil over, and it's headed straight for the halls of power. Bread. Bread. We want the Austrian bitch. I mean, that's a chilling sound, isn't it? That was the chant from thousands of furious Parisians, a lot of them women, marching all the way to Versailles. Their target? Yeah, it was crystal clear. Their rage was something you could feel. They were coming for Queen Marie Antoinette. So, while that mob is marching, inside her studio, the Queen's painter and really her confidant, Élisabeth Vigée Le Brun, knows what's coming. She has to get out. She has to escape. But what was her crime? Was it treason? Nope. Conspiracy? Not at all. Her crime was loyalty. And it was all because she did one simple but incredibly dangerous thing. She made the most hated woman in France look human. So, you have to ask, right? How on earth did this happen? How did the most celebrated portrait painter in all of France suddenly become an enemy of the people, literally running for her life? Well, that's the big question we're going to unpack right now. All right, to get to the bottom of this, we've got to go back to the very beginning of this fateful relationship between the artist and the queen. It was an alliance that really would change both of their lives forever. So, on one side, you've got Élisabeth Vigée Le Brun. I mean, she's this brilliant, totally self-made artist trying to make it in a world completely dominated by men. And then on the other side, you have Queen Marie Antoinette. She's a foreign queen, completely isolated and pretty much hated in the snake pit that was the court of Versailles. You see the parallel? They were both outsiders, both fighting for some kind of legitimacy. The queen's instructions were, well, pretty telling. I don't need you to paint what's true. I need you to paint what people should believe. Whoa. So right from the start, this wasn't just about getting a portrait done. No, Marie Antoinette was basically recruiting an image maker for a brutal PR war. A war that, let's be honest, she was already losing badly. But here's where things get really interesting. What started as just a job, it turned into something much more. During those long hours sitting for portraits, all the formal stuff between queen and artist just kind of melted away. They started talking, and they realized they were both women who were constantly being judged, dismissed, and totally underestimated. And out of that, a real friendship grew, a friendship that would turn out to be incredibly dangerous. And of course, this friendship, this alliance, it was about to be put to the ultimate test. It all came down to a single painting, a piece of art so revolutionary it would set off a total firestorm and pretty much seal both their fates. Please, Élisabeth, paint me as your friend, not your queen. Just think about that for a second. The Queen of France is basically saying, I'm sick of all these stuffy formal portraits. Forget the crown, forget the symbol. Just paint me. It was a totally radical plea for just a little bit of authenticity in what was probably the most artificial place on earth. And this was the result. For its time, this portrait was just shockingly intimate. It shows the queen looking relaxed, natural, wearing a simple muslin chemise that was basically a light, informal dress you'd only wear in private. It was beautiful, it was honest, and it was a complete and utter disaster. The backlash was immediate. I mean, people absolutely lost their minds. The critics were screaming, "The queen is in her undergarments!" It was seen as this huge insult to the crown, an outrage against the dignity of the monarchy. Basically, they saw it as proof that she was frivolous and didn't respect her role. It was so bad, the painting had to be yanked from the public exhibition. So what was the real crime here? It wasn't the dress. It was the intimacy. By daring to paint the queen as a vulnerable, actual human being, Vigée Le Brun had crossed a seriously dangerous line. A queen was supposed to be a symbol, larger than life, and making her look human, that was unforgivable. And right after this whole portrait scandal, things just started spiraling out of control politically. It turns out, no matter how beautiful a painting is, it's pretty much powerless against the tidal wave of a revolution. And the whole thing unraveled so fast. First, you had the diamond necklace affair. She was totally innocent, but it didn't matter. It just cemented this idea that she was wildly extravagant. So they tried a propaganda portrait, painting her as a loving mother, but nobody bought it. Then, boom, the Bastille is stormed. The revolution officially begins. And next thing you know, that mob is marching on Versailles for her head.
30. Over 12 years, Vigée Le Brun painted the Queen 30 times. Think about that. 30 separate attempts to build a different story, to use art and humanity to fight back against all that hate. Every single one of those portraits was like a little battle in a war her friend was sadly destined to lose.
But in the end, it was no use. The public, they'd already painted their own picture of Marie Antoinette in their minds, and it was this grotesque caricature of a foreign, decadent monster. And just like that, Vigée Le Brun's beautiful art and the loyalty behind it had become a life-threatening liability. So that brings us to the final chapter of her story, survival. I mean, how do you navigate a world that's been completely turned upside down, where your greatest career achievement is now the very thing that could get you killed? Well, her survival strategy was, honestly, it was genius. As she fled France, she didn't try to hide her connection to the doomed queen, not at all. Instead, she did the opposite. She totally rebranded herself, marketing herself to all the other royal courts in Europe as the painter who stayed loyal to her queen. She turned what should have been a liability into her greatest asset, a badge of honor. And the crazy part? It totally worked. She didn't just survive in exile, she thrived. She was painting for the royal courts in Italy, Austria, Russia. She was even welcomed by Catherine the Great herself. Think about that irony. The very thing that made her an enemy in France made her a celebrity everywhere else. And in the end, she outlived all of it. The revolution, Napoleon, her queen, everyone. You know, after everything she went through, she learned a pretty profound lesson. As she put it, art can't stop revolutions, but it can preserve truth for future generations. She realized her paintings couldn't stop a guillotine. They couldn't rewrite history as it was happening, but they could do something just as important. They could bear witness. So, in the end, no. Her portraits didn't save Marie Antoinette's life. But what they did do was preserve a fragile human truth that all the politics and propaganda tried to bury forever. Thanks to her, we can still see the woman, the friend, the mother that the revolution wanted to erase.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? I mean, we live in an age that's just flooded with our own kinds of propaganda and political caricatures. So her story kind of forces us to look around and ask, what truth is art preserving for us today? And maybe more importantly, will we be able to see it?